about, you quoted another person's tweet. I think they were, the individual was talking about a visit that they had had to a policymaker. And you said, when opportunity meets preparation, you can and should speak truth to power. Can you share an example for us of a time when you were prepared to speak truth to power, maybe in your past time in the policy space or today? And, what was the opportunity? How did it arise? And how did the women on this call, in fact, everyone on this call, how can they do that as well?
Yeah. Let me just quickly talk about the context of that tweet. And it's so terrible. Whatever you share on social media, be careful because you'll be quoted back at you. So the context was my colleague, the telecom partner in Nairobi, she's from Zimbabwe. But she lives in Nairobi. She's married to a Kenyan. And the president of Zimbabwe was visiting Kenya. And he came to the innovation hub where the telecom offices are located. And she had the opportunity or the privilege of taking him around the hub. And he was very impressed. And she said to him, this is Kenya. Kenya receives X billion dollars of investment from VC funds and all of that. But, my country, our country, Zimbabwe, we need to do more. And she actually challenged the president of Zimbabwe. And that was really speaking truth to power because she had the opportunity to take him around and really speak truth to power. So I was very excited when I saw her tweet and I sort of retweeted it. But to your question around truth to power, the one example I can think about is when I was Minister of Communication Technology, and it was, 2011, 2015 was at the height of the Boko Haram insurgency and terrorism. The army was really sort of struggling to contain this threat to the country and all of that. And I remember being summoned into the office of the NSA at that point in time. I was, as Minister of Communication Technology, we must be able to do something from a tech perspective. And as I entered into the office, seated with the NSA were all the, what they call it now, chiefs of defense staff, chief of naval staff, chief of army staff. They were all seated there. And here was little old me, coming to be grilled. And basically what they wanted, which was, nothing wrong with what they wanted, was how can the telecommunications companies support them in the fight against this Boko Haram insurgency? And, as things are, it was more around, how could they get funds? Because, of course, as you know, the telecoms companies are seen as the cash cows. What were the ways in which they could get funds from the companies? And I then went into this lecture about how, well, there was a way that we could do. We can't just ask them for money. We've got to, it's got to be things that are related to the work that they do and all that. And I was basically telling them that, no, you can't do this. You can't do it like this. You got to do it in a certain way. And I saw, they're all looking at me quite bemused, thinking.
Were you the only woman in the room?
I was the only woman in the room. There were just 6 of us in the room. So it wasn't like a big audience. It was NSA, the 5 chiefs of staff, and myself. And, I had to explain to them that this is not how it works. These are private companies and, and everything. I was, getting very, very philosophical and intellectual and all of that. And I think at the end of my speech, the NSA said to me, Madam Minister, who do you work for? The Nigerian government or the telecoms companies? And I had to say, both, to be honest. I've been given the job by President Jonathan to superintend these companies, and I need to make sure that they have everything they need to grow and to survive and everything. But of course, I'm the Minister of Communication Technology. I have a role that I play in terms of tech in government and everything. So I'm doing both, But that was speaking truth to power, and that was saying to people that didn't understand how these things worked, that you cannot do this. This is the way you do it. This is not the way they do it. So that was speaking truth to power. Luckily for me, there were no consequences. I guess my advice was heeded at the end of the day. There were no consequences. But what I will say, Aishah, is that it's important to speak truth to power. When you have the opportunity, it's important to speak truth to power. But it comes from a place of confidence that you're ready to face whatever the consequences are when you speak truth to power. It comes from a place of knowledge. So when you're speaking truth to power, you're speaking from a place of knowledge. You're not just, getting emotional or whatever. You're just speaking from a place of knowledge. So when you're challenged, you can then also challenge and push back. And also, when you're speaking truth to power, you got to also have a, what would I call it? A network around you that will support you. Because I knew that even as I was speaking to those very important personnel in our defense infrastructure, I knew that if I went back and spoke to whoever, other ministers, even the president himself, I would get the right levels of support. So I think those are the 3 things I would say, that you don't go speaking truth to power without thinking about all of these things, because it may be, because, there are consequences when you do that. So just be careful about it and do it with confidence, with knowledge, and also with knowledge that you have some backing as you speak truth to power.
Yes, I think that you said there were no consequences. I think there were no negative consequences, but there was a positive consequence and outcome, because they not only took your advice, but you gave them a new perspective that they would definitely have used in another context, understanding that, okay, a federal minister may have a dual role to protect the primary, should I say the primary ecosystem that you have oversight for, and in the context of the broader objective. So I think that was good. And I like your 3 points: the knowledge, the confidence, and having a network, of supportive people around the room. And I guess that network you build one by one, I guess, before you enter the room.
Oh, yes.
Yes, definitely. I promised 2 more questions, and I'm supposed to give you 1 more question, but sorry, there was one